Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories, shall we? The first story is called "Have to Clear Out Our Vacation Time?" I'm a social worker with a moderate-sized non-profit compared to the city we are in. We serve individuals with disabilities in a variety, including on-site and in the community. About a year and a half ago, our executive director retired after 15-ish years. They were an awesome person, but due to age and some health problems had kind of checked out of running the organization. The new director came from a much larger for-profit organization and seemed to feel that money is king and the only way to be respected is to be feared. She was a monster in every sense of the word. Now, being a non-profit, our pay isn't fantastic and the benefits aren't stellar, but the one thing they were good at was the vacation rollover. We were allowed to keep 200 hours of rollover. And while it took some time to build up, those of us that had been there a while tried keeping our hours somewhere around there. This is our vacation and sick time put together. The new director decides that our entire vacation policy is too generous and cuts our accrual rate. I personally lost almost 2 full weeks a year. And the major kicker tells us we can only keep 80 hours of rollover. Again, I get it. 2020 hit us hard. Everyone has to be expected to make some cuts somewhere. But the problem is, she told everyone this the first week of October, and we had to be down to 80 by January 1st. Anything over 80 just goes away. We tried negotiating, we tried offering alternatives, we asked for exemptions by a few months. She would absolutely not hear it, and finally said the next person who asked about our PTO policy would be walked out of the building. So my coworkers and I came up with a plan: enter the compliance. I will admit, this only worked because the rest of our administration team felt the director was horrible and also lost their PTO time too. We all put in for vacation at the same time, even those that really didn't need to, because they were closer to 80 hours anyway. We literally had 85% of our staff off for weeks at a time. We worked it out amongst ourselves that we had just enough staff to ensure work was done to keep us compliant with the state. But anything above and beyond that ground to a halt. I also need to clarify that we are not an emergency service, so the clients we serve did not lose out on essential supports. Well, our board meeting comes around in December, and the new director has to try and explain why there was such a drastic drop in revenue over the last month and a half. Apparently, she did not give a good enough answer, because the board started talking to the employees and senior management for the first time since the new director came on. Let me tell you, we did not hold back. And after hearing the horror stories of some of the other stuff she was doing, the board promptly sent out an email. They decided that having her in charge was not going to lead us in a direction that would lead to long-term success and stability for our organization. So they kicked her out. I'm happy to say they found a new director who has already gone above and beyond what we could have hoped for. And our staff, and most importantly our clients, are hopefully on the path to many years of success. The next story is called "If You Want More Money, Work Somewhere Else." About 4 years ago, I worked for a company that provided behavior services for people with intellectual and development disabilities. We did individual counseling, parent training, data analysis, things like that. Think highly specialized mental care and support in home and community settings. Anyway, after 2 years of working there and getting another certification, I asked my boss for a raise. I was newly divorced and raising 3 kids, so I really needed the money. I had been working 10 plus hours a week of overtime to stay afloat. My boss also knew about my situation. My evaluations were great and I had been told I would be moved up to supervisor soon, so my boss had to have known this conversation was coming. This man looked me dead in my eyes and said that he knew I wanted to make more money and my reviews were great, but he wanted to make sure I was loyal to the company mission. He told me he can tell when people are just looking to make more money, and we tell those people to go work somewhere else. He wanted to make sure that the new supervisor would put the company mission and family stay support first. He told me that he couldn't offer me a raise at the time, but he would get back to me. No date was set for a follow-up meeting or anything. I started applying for new jobs that day. Within 2 weeks I had found a new position, making double the salary for only 40 hours of work a week. As it turns out, I was being severely underpaid. Shocker, I know. The day I handed in my notice, my boss and the owner were in a meeting about my new position within the organization. Of course, no one said anything to me about it beforehand. They sent me an offer, which I politely declined because it was really bad. Then they tried to hire me as a contractor at a rate that was at least 25% lower than every other contractor rate in the city for my position, so I turned that down too. My boss and the owner were both shocked that I rejected their offers, especially since they were willing to offer me so many perks. According to them, they were giving me the opportunity to become a leader in a great company and believed I was a great clinician who would do so many great things within their organization. I reminded my boss that he is the one who told me to go work somewhere else, and then I stopped responding to their messages. The last story is called Think Hard About If You Want to Be Employed Here. I worked for Target on the overnight team, 10 PM to 6:30 AM. A specialist position came up, for which I applied and was granted. This was the position of receiver, scheduled to work 6 AM to 2:30 PM, which basically was the person who would take in vendor orders. This means not things that were sent straight from corporate, but instead the Coca-Cola guy or the Lay's potato chips guy, and specialty orders that came in at times other than the main truck. This was a job where instead of one major task, you dealt with about 20 minor ones throughout the day. Your day varied based on the whims of the people who are bringing things to you. We had a delivery cutoff of 12 PM, but management would always say just take things no matter when they came. I generally was really good about managing my time and making sure if I needed to stay late for something important, I did. If it was something minor, I'd get it first in the morning. I had a good rapport with my boss and I got great reviews. Then my boss got a promotion and my new boss was a jerk. The new boss, we called him John, was a tyrant of the pettiest type. He'd wondered why things were left overnight when I wasn't busy earlier in the day when he saw me. Well, I'd completed all my tasks and I can't make UPS come faster than they do. When Target's corporate told my department it was busy enough for a 20-hour-a-week worker, he refused to let me get anyone for longer than my 30-minute lunch breaks. The straw that broke my back was P-Fresh. For those of you who didn't work at Target in the early 2000s, P-Fresh was what they called their new initiative to have groceries in the stores. It was a big deal for them, and my store was one of the pilot stores in our area. I would be the first person to have to deal with it. I would have to teach receivers in the area how it works by having them shadow me for a day at my store and me at theirs when they got their fresh food. The fresh food came in a separate truck that arrived at 4 AM. I expected, like I was informed, I would simply have to process it first thing in the morning when I got to work. Instead, John decided that my schedule was going to be changed to 4 AM to 12:30 PM. Getting up at 3 AM to be at work at 4 AM was not fun, but I dealt with it because I was a team player. However, John still insisted I needed all my work done by the time I left at 12:30 PM, an impossibility when the cutoff for deliveries was 12 PM. I still prioritized things as well as I could, and nothing urgent was left undone for more than 24 hours. The straw that broke my back was when the specialist position was terminated. Basically, Target wanted those special positions in the normal chain of command, which is fine. However, when they did this, they also gave lots of power to John. You see, it was in my old position that I had weekends off, because people don't deliver on the weekends. Also, I was not required to work holidays, along with being a guaranteed 40-hour-a-week Monday to Friday position. When this change came through, HR informed us that we had a week to decide whether we wanted the position or if we wanted to go to another position in the company, or if we wanted severance. HR informed me that nothing would really be changing with my job, because it was still important, whereas other jobs like the jewelry counter weren't considered as important and were being rolled in with other things. I was going to stay with the position until John brought me into the office later that day. He told me he was tired of my poor attitude involving getting things done, so he was changing my schedule to a split shift. Basically, he wanted me to come in from 4 to 5 AM, then go home for an hour, then come back at 6 AM and work until 1:30 PM. He also told me that any overtime would no longer be allowed and that I would have to start working one weekend a month and holidays. He also wrote me up for something that I did not do, but the person who covered my lunches did, under the guise of me not training them properly. His words were, "You need to think long and hard about how you are working and think about if you want to be employed here in a month." I told him he was absolutely right. I told him I would be right back. I had to run to the restroom. Instead, I went to HR and told them I'm taking the severance, and as it was 12:25 PM, I'm guessing this is my last day. I then got to go back to John and tell him what I just said. He told me that I had to come back next week to train my replacement. I walked out of that building happier than I had been in the last 3 years working there. I got texts over the next few months of the fallout. The receiving department was a nightmare for months, and since I was the only one who knew how to handle their refrigerated trucks, they lost an entire truck's worth of merchandise that week. That was not a good look for them. Additionally, corporate had to send out people from out of the area to cover all of the training I was supposed to provide, which cost them a lot of money and made corporate even more angry at John. Last I heard, he had been let go, and the next place he worked fired him also. I had a month's vacation where I played video games, and then I took a new job. I was happy as a clam. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.